Presented as a work of art, with a single concept unifying the album as a whole, it announced that the age of the traditional pop single and the pop band was over.
Sgt. Pepper revolutionized the record industry. All of a sudden, albums sold as much as singles. Sgt. Pepper sold in the millions. On pure business terms, it was a revolutionary release. But also it was revolutionary in terms of letting the record industry know precisely what it could sell. What you could do is invest in the finest artistic minds of a generation and give them the freedom to make their art, package it up as an album, and sell it in the millions.
Paul had this idea of, we want to get away from being the four mop tops and the Fab Four, so we create this new name for ourselves. We're going to be a different group, and that'll give us the freedom to do what the hell we want. That is the basic concept. The songs, many of those songs could have been on any of the other albums. It didn't really, they weren't specific to that particular one. But the influence of it was staggering. The Beatles were a force to be reckoned with. I mean, even the Stones were badly affected by them at that point. Everyone just had to deal with them. They were like a roadblock. If you were in the music business, you just had to deal with this great big thing in front of you and get around it the best you could.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I mean, the title itself was a piece of art and something that mystified people. Peter Blake did the cover, and Peter Blake was the father of British pop art. Everything about Sgt. Pepper was an enigma. The fact that they were pretending to not be the Beatles, but to be another band. The lock groove at the end of side 2, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, LSD, secret messages all the way through. It was like a work of literature, it's like a Ulysses or something, where people were just thinking, I don't quite understand this, but there's definitely something really going on.
This combination of imagination and mystery proved irresistible. With Sgt. Pepper, the Beatles transformed from pop culture icons into mystics of the modern age.
When the Beatles came out with a new song, people started pondering it. These are people that you're looking to for meaning.
By '67, I think the release of Sgt. Pepper in America established the Beatles basically as the leaders of the counterculture, along with a few other people like Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary. But the Beatles were the musical leaders right across the board. I mean, they were seen as, yes, as gods. I mean, Leary himself said a lot of silly things about them as the type of new superheroes, leaders of men and all this stuff.
I'm not convinced that the youth culture in the mid-60s were terribly aware of LSD and Timothy Leary and even counterculture attitudes. If it hadn't have been for that conduit that was the Beatles, this sort of stuff might have just stayed in San Francisco, in California. The counterculture wasn't called the underground for no reason. Not many people knew about it.
Yet the Beatles were determined to spread the word even further. At the end of June 1967, less than a month after the release of Sgt. Pepper's, the band were invited to represent Britain in the first ever international satellite television broadcast. Across the US, Canada, and Europe, the youthful optimism of the counterculture was reaching its peak during the Summer of Love, with thousands flocking to large public events. With their historic contribution to the One World broadcast, the Beatles delivered the scene's definitive anthem to an audience of over 500 million viewers worldwide.
The Beatles, true to form, national representatives representing their country, they start with the national anthem. The only problem is, it's the French national anthem. I mean, that's a classic. That is total Beatle humor.
It It was fun. I was at that one. It was like a party. They'd invited a load of their friends, the Small Faces and the Rolling Stones, and everybody was there, all in our psychedelic finery. Sitting on the floor there, it just looked like it might all explode at some point. But and there was an awful lot of sort of frantic waving and people rushing around, holding onto their headphones and talking to people. That was mostly to do with the international link-up, though, because no one had ever done that before. It really did go out live all around the world. It was fantastic.